It's time for our next Fireside Chat, which will bring us a view from Silicon Valley. Not the HBO comedy series, but the insider perspective from two people who know the Valley intimately. Robin Richards Donahue is a founder and managing director of the Draper International and Draper Richards Fund. The Draper International India Fund was the first Western venture fund to go into India and gave 15 times return to its investors. Blake Winchell is a venture capital and search fund investor, an entrepreneurship professor, author, playwright, a member of ASCAP, ASCAP, and the Dramatists Guild, a true polymath. Robin, Blake, how are you? Can you hear us?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Hello, South Summit. So, Robin, what is being transformed in the social impact world because of the COVID situation?
So the singular impact of the pandemic in the world of social impact is the huge change in distribution channels. This has happened across many, many sectors, and today I'm just going to tell you about three: education, food distribution, and then healthcare. So in terms of education, I think we all recognize that online education is the new technology and is probably here to stay in a lot of different areas. And in many cases, the lower socioeconomic groups, they're in digital deserts. So a deal that we did called Digital Bridge K-12 creates buses that are Wi-Fi buses that literally drive in to neighborhoods that don't have any Wi-Fi, and they light up the neighborhood for the time that the school day exists. I'd like to also talk about the food industry, and typically the bricks and mortar tradition is that you would have food banks with a lot of volunteers, and a lot of these volunteers were elderly people. And of course, that's gone away. They're not able to volunteer. What's happened is not only have food banks merged together, which is a great thing, but think of it like Amazon. They now think of the end users. So they are creating boxes of food for individuals based on their taste, and it's all automated just like an Amazon order would be. And finally, in healthcare, I think we all appreciate that telemedicine has taken over, and that's been very successful. But what about for the nonprofits? And so for them as well, not only do you have nonprofit companies that do everything from text you when it's time to take your medicine, but you have much larger plays. And we just funded a deal called Valera Health. It's been about 3 years in the making. They are focused on mental health of the lowest socioeconomic group. So to sum it up, in my space, not only do we recognize networks and how distribution can happen, but what we really do is think about the equality of it and really focus on how are all economic groups going to be able to benefit from this sea change in distribution. And I'm here to say it's been a real upside of the downside of the pandemic. So my question for you, Blake, is how has COVID impacted the venture capital ecosystem in Silicon Valley?
So, you know, Robin, actually Silicon Valley is doing remarkably well. Nobody would have predicted it in March when the pandemic first hit. But as you know, markets tend to look forward and not back. And it appears that the markets discounted COVID as more of a short-term phenomenon, and as a result, the markets have really kind of surged, particularly the markets, both private and public, for technology companies. Interestingly, despite the lockdown, the venture capital ecosystem has been very quick to virtualize. And as a result of work from home, for many people, they're working longer, they're working harder, output has gone up, and productivity has increased as well, which was unexpected. In March, April, and May, there were a lot of inside rounds that were done for companies that really needed cash, either because of COVID or because they were at that point in their cycle where they needed cash. But the market really kind of came back very quickly, and with virtualization, the competition for venture capital is now really back to its pre-COVID levels at everything from the seed stage up through growth capital. M&A has slowed somewhat. We have 2 companies in our portfolio that are in processes now, but M&A is a little bit harder because there is some face-to-face stuff that needs to go on when you're thinking about making an acquisition, as you know. But the IPO market is incredibly robust, with Palantir, Snowflake, Asana, DoorDash, and Airbnb all talking about filing. It also appears that SPACs are the flavor of the year. There's been a lot of liquidity sitting on the sidelines, interested in investing in technology companies, and so a lot of these special purpose acquisition companies have popped up to acquire technology companies. In fact, it was just announced last week that Flying Eagle Acquisition Company, which is a blank check company, they are acquiring the competitive gaming company Skills, which, like DraftKings, basically allows for betting on games. The pandemic has created headwinds for some companies and tailwinds for others. I'll give you a couple of examples from our portfolio. Clover Food Labs in Boston is a fast, healthy food company with 13 restaurants, all of which they had to close in March, and they're still closed. And so obviously that's really difficult for them. But Aaron Muir is the CEO of Clover Food Labs, and he has started a cooking show on YouTube on cooking simple, wholesome recipes that are easy even for novices. An example from our portfolio is Ebb Therapeutics. Ebb is the only medical device that's received FDA approval to treat insomnia. And with all the anxiety and stuff that's been brought on by COVID, that market has grown even more. So even during the pandemic, Ebb has been able to get distribution on Amazon, and as a result, they have had record month-over-month growth in the last 3 months, even though we're in the pandemic. I guess I'll end by observing something that you actually alluded to, and that is the pandemic is going to cause major structural changes in some of the world's largest industries. And so I guess I'll just end by saying that Robin and I appreciate the invitation to join you all at South Summit, and we hope that the balance of this bizarre year will see you very healthy. Back to you, Madrid.
Thank you, Robin and Blake, bringing technology to everyone.